Hello everybody and welcome to the War Room. This one is for this weekend's UFC main event, a heavyweight clash, Tai Tuivasa against Marcin Tybura. First of all, happy birthday Tai Tuivasa. According to UFC stats, his birthday is March 16th and today is currently the 11th. So yeah, happy birthday. Have a good fight week birthday. That's very cool. And of course he's a heavyweight so he can still have cake, but no shoeys until post-fight. Please. Okay. So Tai Tuivasa on a 3-fight losing streak. It's not the first time that he's been on a 3-fight losing streak. It happened earlier on in his UFC career. So although he's seemingly kind of in a really rough spot, he's been stopped 3 times. You know, what is it? Two stoppages and a submission. You can't count him out. And this stylistically is a far more suitable fight for Tai Tuivasa. The problem that Tai has sometimes is he gets out heavyweighted by people. And I say that in a few different senses. Because of course Tai Tuivasa, so well, let's jump into tail of the tape quickly, then that will set the picture. So Tai Tuivasa is 6'2", Marcin Tybura is 6'3". Tai Tuivasa has a 75-inch reach, so Marcin Tybura has the reach advantage of 3 inches at 78. 14-6 for Tai Tuivasa, 24-8 for Marcin Tybura. So just kind of generally overall, we've got a 1-inch height advantage, a 3-inch reach advantage, and a decent experience advantage of what, 12 fights. The one leveling factor, of course, is Tai Tuivasa's power. 14 wins, 13 by knockout, no submissions. He has been submitted a couple of times. What is it? Arm triangle and Ezekiel choke. So, like, chokes, especially when he's on his back, especially when he's kind of tired, that's the kind of submission that he's going to have to really be watching out for. And of course, if he's doing anything between his last fight and this one, it has got to be scrambling, takedown defense, improving his takedown stat, which is currently at 54%. Of course, there's nothing else in the grappling stats of Tai Tuivasa. No takedowns, no takedown accuracy, no sub-average, 54% takedown defense. He's going to need to lift that in this fight because I feel like Tybura could potentially get to him in that range if he chooses to, which he doesn't necessarily. 1.39 takedowns for Marcin Tybura with a 33% accuracy. But we can't underestimate his grappling, and I will come back onto Tybura's grappling in a moment. Tai Tuivasa is a thunderous puncher. He's a little bit undersized for a heavyweight generally, and of course, you know, he does equal that size disadvantage a lot of the time with the fact that he does have tremendous power, and he has knocked out some very big and strong and powerful heavyweights. The problem is though, when Tai Tuivasa runs into a modern heavyweight, like a properly sized modern heavyweight, someone like Ciryl Gane, someone that can move and hit and not get touched, like the stats. In fact, I remember seeing these earlier today, and when I was going through the punch stats, and so there you go. So strikes landed. Tai Tuivasa landed 29 strikes in that fight, and Ciryl Gane landed 110. Bigger, faster, leaner. You know, like, this is the thing with Tai Tuivasa. Like, yeah, absolutely. You know, he could bring himself down into a weight class where he was leaner. You know, he wouldn't be very, very lean at light heavyweight, and he may potentially carry that power down there. But the advantage that Tai Tuivasa's had often is that he can get inside in a close range and he can hit people with thunderous punches. Marcin Tybura is the kind of fighter that really suits Tai Tuivasa because he stands quite upright and he's not massive for a heavyweight. I don't know. Let me have a quick look because we've got average weights on here, haven't we? Yeah, see, Tai Tuivasa's coming in right at the top of the heavyweight limit. UFC stats has got him at 264 compared to Marcin Tybura at 249. Tybura is not a massive heavyweight, right? He's not the kind of heavyweight that's going to be like a Volkov problem or a, you know, I mean, even Greg Hardy, although Tai Tuivasa ended up coming through that fight, he was rocked for a moment. And Greg Hardy is a person that cuts to the heavyweight limit. There are certain times when Tai Tuivasa struggles because the person that he's up against is a genuine, legitimate big heavyweight. if Tai Tuivasa connects like he did against Cyril Gane, and he almost knocked him out, it was a reminder for Cyril that, hang on, you've got to respect this guy's power. He moves very quickly as well. Like, even in his early UFC career, he had a wicked flying knee knockout. A very exciting fighter, very explosive naturally, but he does get like out-pointed, out-touched, out-jabbed, outworked a lot of the time by some of the bigger heavyweights in the division. Like, if you look at his last 3 fights in particular, so of course he is on a 3-fight losing streak. The Cyril Gane fight was he was outpointed and outclassed, outsped, however you would say that. You know what I'm getting at. He was just a step behind all the time, and you could see the frustration. He was taking those shots to the body, which were uncomfortable, painful. He wasn't able to hide that. And the speed of Cyril Gane, be able to move in and out of range, was meaning that Tai Tuivasa was largely ineffective. The one time that he did land clean was when Cyril hit the canvas. And that is always the equalizing factor. Marcin Tybura doesn't move quite as well as Cedric. He moves more like Augusto Sakai, and if you think back to the Augusto Sakai fight, that's where Tai Tuivasa does his best work, because against an Augusto Sakai kind of heavyweight, that they do move and they move all right, but they're not moving like Cyril Gane, and they're standing kind of upright and a little bit square. This is where Tai Tuivasa can be like in and out of range and a little bit quicker than his opponent, and then start setting up those big bombs that come over the top. Tai Tuivasa, just inside that black line on the inside of the octagon canvas, between him and his opponent, up against that fence, is where he does his best work, because he's not afraid to crash into range, get his head in the pocket, thump some shots into the body, and then start coming over the top with those short elbows. Like, you remember the elbow that he landed on Derek Lewis? It was like a short boom, like a thud in the side of his head. That kind of power from punching to elbowing is the real danger in Tai Tuivasa's game. On the other side, Marcin Tybura, 24-8, an experienced fighter, a skilled fighter with good striking, predominantly a southpaw, but does switch stance, so he is quite fluid in his movement, and that can be problematic, especially if you start working on one leg and they're comfortable switching stance to the other. You have to then start to work on both sides of the base, and the low kick game of Tai Tuivasa could be a key in this one. He does have a very powerful low kick, as we saw in the Volkov fight. With Marcin Tybura, he likes to strike, right? That's quite clear when you watch his fights. Often I feel, and I don't speak Polish, but I would imagine that his corner team are often pleading for him to work for a takedown, because he's in positions in fights where he can dominate. Like, when he takes someone to the ground, he just dominates them a lot of the time. He's very good at holding that top position, and he's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. His jiu-jitsu coach, Kamil, is a very high-level grappler in Europe, and he's a heavyweight as well. It's a heavyweight style of grappling. And what I like about Tybura's game is that he uses these effortless takedowns, either up against the fence, where he just pinches their legs together and lifts them, and so they land on their ass, and then he just starts to kind of iron them out. And problematic for Tai Tuivasa, because, of course, if he gets tired, if he gets backed up against the fence and he's starting to take a few shots, this is where Tybura can level change, get that little pinch and put him on the floor, and then Tai's got to do a tremendous amount of work to get back to his feet without giving an arm triangle or giving his back, or losing a position that he was kind of like halfway up back onto his knees, and then all of a sudden he's flattened out, belly down, and dealing with ground and pound. It's an easy approach, in my opinion, for Marcin Tybura. Like, how do you beat Tai Tuivasa? Well, you put him on his back, beat him up, and choke him out. And if you feel confident enough, engage him a little bit in the strike and try and get him to miss. But this is where Marcin Tybura, I feel, may struggle with Tai Tuivasa, because although Tai's on a 3-fight losing streak, you look at who he's lost to; they are good fighters. Cyril Gane is an athlete. He's like a purebred racehorse in this heavyweight division. Then you've got Pavlovich, who is a tank, and he was just he out heavyweighted him. He was just too big and too strong and too powerful. And then Volkov, who is a 6'8" problem with a very, very technical game, who picked him apart. And then it was a submission. That one was it, an arm triangle. Like this is my concern in this fight. Is if he does kind of get caught on the outside, Marcin Tybura can pick him off with kicks, because Tybura's got very good kicks. Sorry, Ezekiel choke from Mount Space Cadet. The arm triangle was the what's his name, Spivak. If I'm in Marcin Tybura's corner, I'm going, okay, look, you know he's going to be coming to pressure you. You know he's going to try and squeeze you up against the fence, where he stands you upright, and then he starts bringing those big clubbing hooks and overhands over the top. And because Tybura is slightly taller and he does stand upright, Tai Tuivasa sits into his stance, and if he starts to dig those body shots, that might then start to bring their hands down. Something that I did notice, actually, I've been watching some Tybura today, some of his more recent fights. He has this weird tendency to do this kind of face palm defense. Like when he was under pressure, I can't remember which fight it was. Harris, Walt Harris. He was backed up against the fence, and he was doing this kind of like face palm defense, where he had his hand over his face, like he was bracing himself to take punches. They're the kind of circumstances where if I'm Tai Tuivasa and I know what kind of power I've got in my hands, I'm going to dine out on that. I'm going to back him up and get his feet together and get him upright and standing tall, and then get him doing this kind of weird, like, face palm defense that he does. And I'm going to work to the body, and I'm going to build up to the head, and I'm going to catch him with something. And for Tai Tuivasa, these are the tailor-made styles of opponent that he likes, the ones that can't get away from his power, that can't use the footwork to escape. So potentially he might have beaten Tybura's legs up a little bit with his low kicks, and then he can put him in the position where he can't escape that punching power that Tai's got, as well as, of course, the elbow game on the inside if we do get some hustle in the clinch. But if Tybura's smart, he's going to come out and he's going to set up a takedown. He's going to potentially try and catch one of those low kicks, which we've seen him do before, or he's going to be courageous enough to move into Tybura. It is not helpful that this is Tybura and Tuivasa. I'm too tired for this. It's been a long week. If Tybura can get Tai Tuivasa backed up against the fence, then of course he's got that nice little pinch takedown that he gets, and he is a big heavyweight guy. He can lean on Tai and wear him out and tire him out, and that will make the takedowns easier. And if Marcin Tybura doesn't lose confidence by taking someone down and them scrambling back to their feet, then that Daniel Cormier grind cycle could be a very useful tool in this fight as well, to smother the power of Tai Tuivasa, which is always going to be something that Tybura has to respect whenever this fights, even in a remotely striking position. Like Tai Tuivasa can hit with scary power, and I think that any time Marcin Tybura is behind Tai Tuivasa, he's probably the only safe place he can be. I think the body kicks of Marcin Tybura are also going to be a key in this fight. We saw Tai Tuivasa struggle with body kicks against Cyril Gane. Marcin Tybura's got great body kicks. And the other thing as well, so we've got Tai Tuivasa, who's predominantly orthodox, and then we've got Marcin Tybura, who, like I said, does switch his stance, but is predominantly a southpaw. He's also a southpaw with a predominant left leg. So what we're going to see a lot of the time here is Marcin Tybura switching to southpaw and then working that kick to the body over and over again, learning from the Cyril Gane fight, which was quite telling that Tai Tuivasa couldn't deal with those body kicks very well. That might allow Tybura to kind of wear him down from the outside and not be too much in danger of the punching power, although still, Tai does move through range pretty quickly. But it's like, I like to refer to it as the bookends of Tai Tuivasa's game. Like if this is the spectrum of mixed martial arts, and this is as far away from your opponent as you can get, and this is as close to them as you can get, you're practically inside them with your rear naked choke position. You are so clamped onto them. That's the range of the spectrum that we're talking about in mixed martial arts, right? Tai Tuivasa occupies that space right in the middle. He occupies the space between the outstretched knuckles and the close range elbow. That's where he's the most dangerous. Marcin Tybura, his range starts further out than Tai Tuivasa's. His range starts at the range of kicking, the long range kicking, and he's slightly taller, and he's very good at throwing long range kicks to the body. So the range that Tai Tuivasa has to get inside to be most effective has to go through the kicking range of Tybura. So if Tybura can manage that range at one end of the spectrum, then that's where he's going to be the safest. Then he has to go all the way through Tai Tuivasa's danger range to get past his elbows and into a body lock where he can then take him to the floor and then start to work his grappling. And that, again, is a safe range for Marcin Tybura. It's like crossing a dangerous river. You know what I mean? Like he's going to have to go through it if he wants to finish the fight, because I don't think he can finish the fight on this side unless he's patient and very, very diligent with his footwork and his game plan. Because 25 minutes, Tai Tuivasa's going to march him down and get his face peppered and maybe look a little bit bloody and take a few shots to the body. But there's always that possibility that he's just going to step forward and crack you on the chin. And that's a game that Marcin Tybura, he really doesn't want to play. I mean, he's coming off a loss, isn't he? He's definitely going to want to get, I mean, if especially because Tai Tuivasa, unfortunately, is on a 3-fight losing streak. Marcin Tybura is coming off that loss to Tom Aspinall, which of course is looking better and better by the day. So a win here for Marcin Tybura, unfortunately, is a really bad situation for Tai Tuivasa, because then he'd be on a 4-fight losing streak. I don't think the UFC would cut him. He's too cool. But Marcin Tybura would then put himself back in a very strong position to kind of, to call out the standing interim champion while he's kind of waiting around for something to do. And, I mean, it was just over a minute, so maybe Tybura wants a couple more fights before that, but still, he needs to be on the up and up. So the best thing for him to do is to beat Tai Tuivasa impressively, and for me, that would be to get through that dangerous range, get him to the floor where he can then just smother him, exhaust him, wear him out, short smashing elbows, short ground and pound, smothering his face, just kind of being generally nasty, and then look to either set up an arm triangle or take the back when Tai Tuivasa's scrambling, or even a north-south choke, which is a rather unusual technique. But Marcin Tybura does have a north-south choke on his record, and I don't know, there's just something about heavyweights. Jeff Monson, shout out to the old school, was always very good at north-south, and that compressive, big back heavyweight style, I can certainly see Marcin Tybura utilizing some of that in this fight, even if it's just to slow Tai Tuivasa down and exhaust him a bit. It's a very interesting fight. It could go both ways. Like, Tai Tuivasa could quite easily back Marcin Tybura up, crack him on the chin, and put him to sleep. Marcin Tybura could quite easily kick Tai Tuivasa to bits from the outside and then take him down and choke him out. Yeah, it's just one of those kind of fights. It really depends on. It's far clear. It's far clearer for Tai Tuivasa. Like, he's not going to come out and try and grapple with Marcin Tybura. That wouldn't be wise, because that would be a waste of his punching power energy, and Marcin Tybura is a good grappler. So it's a lot clearer for Tai Tuivasa what he has to do. It's more about how he does it. That's the puzzle for Tybura to figure out. For Marcin Tybura, he could make the decision to stand and trade here, and that might not be wise. But if he doesn't decide to grapple, then that could be very problematic, and that would be the higher fight IQ direction to go. Just to break Marcin Tybura's record down, 24 wins, 8 losses, 9 by knockout, 6 by submission, so 4 rear naked chokes, triangle armbar, and a north-south choke. Yeah, I could very much see him in that back position, stretching Tai Tuivasa out and ground and pounding, maybe even a TKO finish from that position. We know he's got pretty relentless ground and pound when he does get into that position. What didn't I say? So just quick before I let you go. So the striking stats are all, of course, lots of fun to look at, especially at heavyweight. So Marcin Tybura, hang on a minute. I knew that's why I left that page open, Jamie. So where is, hang on, knockdowns. Here we go. Oh, damn it. So that's the whole roster. Heavyweights. So as you can imagine with these statistics, the stats are swayed very heavily towards Marcin Tybura landing lots of strikes and not really hurting people a great deal. He does have one knockdown on his UFC record, and that was a head kick, which is definitely something to keep an eye on, because Tai Tuivasa does take a good shot, and the easiest way to knock out someone that takes a good shot is to kick them around the head instead of trying to punch them. And especially if Tybura started to land a few shots to the body, it might start to bring the hands down of Tai Tuivasa, and that might open up the head kick. So knockdowns landed. So Tai Tuivasa's fourth with 8 knockdowns. 8 knockdowns and 397 strikes landed. 1 knockdown for Tybura, 1,387 strikes landed. So Marcin Tybura's knockdown statistic is 1 knockdown for 1,387 punches. Tai Tuivasa's knocked people down 8 times for 397, which means that his knockdown statistic is 1 per 49.6 punches. So every 50th punch that Tai Tuivasa connects with is a super punch. So count the punches in the fight and see if he can get to 50 before he's put Tybura on the canvas. I'm excited for this one. I think there's a lot of pressure on Tai Tuivasa given the fact that he's on a 3-fight losing streak, but he has been on a 3-fight losing streak before. He did 9 fights in his early career undefeated, including his 3 UFC debut and then 2 more wins. Then he went on a 3-fight skid, TKO, a decision and a submission. Then a 5-fight streak, beating 5 people within the distance, 3 in the first round, 2 in the second, and then on a 3-fight skid. So if the pattern serves correctly, he should be back on a win streak anytime soon. But Tybura, of course, is a very technical, well-rounded fighter, and if he makes good decisions, he could make it a rough night for Tai Tuivasa. I'm interested to see how you guys pick it, so let me know in the comments. As you know, I hear you sometimes complain I don't make a pick. Sometimes I don't make a pick. Most of the time I don't make a pick. I'm more interested in the two sides and how they're going to play out, and what you guys think, what you guys get from the breakdown. You know, maybe you've got a pick that changed from the start of the breakdown to the end of the breakdown, or maybe you thought it was going to go one way and now I've talked you into it going a slightly different way. Let me know in the comments. I'm always interested to read them. All right, enjoy these fights, and I will see you next time.